I would tell my mother, now imagine this little 3-year-old going, I want to go back. I
It's like,
want to go
wait a minute,
back.
I've seen enough. 3 years old. Now that's awake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was it was
I'm
pretty
sorry.
crazy.
It's like, all right, time out. I've had enough of this. I'm going back in.
Right. And, my poor mom was just like, well, honey, you're home. What are we going to do here? You're 3. Nowhere to send you. So I just kind of hunkered down and luckily fell asleep again for probably about, oh, not that long, about another 10 or so. Yeah, 10 years. I was about 13 when I woke back up again. So I had that same kind of weird epiphany, which is almost like if you ever had that experience of either looking at your hands and just like, who do those belong to? Or looking in the mirror, like straight in your eyes and just like, oh, that's very creepy. You kind of do those energetic things.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
that was really what triggered me again, like around 13, 14. And I realized, oh, because I could remember, um, being a much more etheric soul, like having conversations with these etheric beings where I didn't have to use so many words.
Ah.
So, yeah, I realized that's really probably what triggered me around 3. Was here I'm trying to explain myself. I'm sure I've come with a mission, no doubt. and, and here I am, trying to make myself understood with these big adults. And it just was like, it was so much easier before when I wasn't in a body, which is kind of my whole just, basic
And you had that
tenet.
sense of consciousness of the fact that you were at one time apart from the body.
Yeah, I have a visual, which is of 3 very etheric looking souls kind of standing together, having a conversation, but it wasn't like we have conversations. It's like an energetic, let me just share all of this with you, and you grok it, right? You feel it, you know it, you see it, you have the whole story in a download. And so there you are, like, oh, of course you've just had that same experience that I've had. So that's how it felt to me. And so what I really started to do, I was blessed to be living in California this was now the late 60s, early 70s. And I just started to read everything I could get my hands on.
I remember those times with fondness.
Yes.
I do.
Those are the good old days, aren't they,
They
Wayne?
really were. I mean, the best music, the best, and a lot of people don't, I guess it's interesting how you and I have some parallel paths here was that in 1970, I was understanding the path of philosophy, primarily from Native American Indians,
Oh.
understanding their culture. I went on a vision quest, so understanding very much where you're coming from.
Fascinating, right? So
Yeah.
then the 70s comes in, and now we have the Maharishi coming, and the Beatles have a guru, and there was Baba Ram Dass wrote Be Here Now, and one of my favorite books called Journeys Out of the Body by Robert Monroe, who started the Monroe Institute, if you're familiar with the Monroe
Yes.
Institute. Virginia at all. So Robert
Yes.
Monroe, one of the first books I read around 14 was Journeys Out of the Body. It was always fun trying to find a way to escape.
Now, how interesting. I digress here, but your approach was to go back to a former state of condition, whereas, and I'll just, with myself, with Dr. Larry, was to try to reach that through an enhanced state of mind, primarily through lysergic diethylate acid.
Sure. Well, I never say I didn't try that path too.
But I
Remember,
did.
I'm in San Francisco in the 70s. So
Okay, enough said. Enough said. I've been right
Right.
there. Okay.
Yeah, so I was reading books at 14, 15, 16, but, that was and then on we went to, study all the other paths
Yes, yes,
available.
it does. This is true.
Yeah. So, anyway, that was, and then I minored in philosophy in college. So I really,
Interesting.
it's kind of been a very lifelong path for me. And then many, many years later, I actually kind of weirdly finished college, went on, had a career in the corporate world. I was an advertising production director for some big and small ad agencies. I worked in Chicago for a while, and then I came back to San Francisco. And
How
anyway,
interesting. Because I
yeah. So
worked in
I,
the post production industry.
oh, did you
Yeah, I
really?
worked for some of the I worked for Crawford, and we were like the second largest post house in the United States.
Wow.
So anyway,
Yeah.
okay, very
Yeah.
interesting. Okay, told you this was going to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. Long lost friends,
Yeah,
right? You know.
probably it's amazing because I was a vice president of the Nashville ad agency. Also, I was the regional president for the International Television Association. So I
Oh,
actually won 2 Emmys. Well, they
congratulations.
were
Wow.
industrial, but we did
Well,
some pretty good work.
that's what counts, right?
So that's what counts.
Uh,
So, how did you come across the what we call the Akashic record? Am I saying that right? Akashic?
Akashic,
Yeah.
Akashic, it's all the
Yeah.
same place.
Okay.
Um, well, so I did go on and did this, kind of corporate work for about 15, plus years. And it eventually, I actually ended up very sick. I ended up with
I was
really
going to
bad
say, it
chronic.
sucks the life out of you. It's the
It
life
does.
energy.
It really
It
does.
really
And I
does.
ended up just with chronic fatigue, and really through going to an acupuncturist and kind of getting a little back on a spiritual path. She said to me one day after about, working with me for a year, she said, we've really healed your body, but there's something much deeper that I can't get to. And so she suggested I go see a friend of hers who was a phenomenal clairvoyant healer. And the woman kind of took one look at me and she said, "Well, you're a healer." And I said, "No, I'm in advertising." Right?
I
I
can
don't know
see
who you
that.
think you're
I can
talking
see
to
that.
here.
I can see this. Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's sunk in, and all of these memories, that I had pretty much swept under a rug, um, really came back. And so I started to study. I actually studied with this woman for years and years as a psychic, intuitive energy healer. I studied psychic anatomy, kind of, medical intuition. I really, started down that road. And she talked about the Akashic records. But the interesting thing is she said, you cannot go in the Akashic records. You can go up to the gate. So imagine this is a big stone library and everyone has one. You can go up to the gate and say, please, sir, now that I've done all this healing, can I have some Akashic information, wisdom I can now hold now that I've cleared all this junk out of my energy field. And I'd see the energy come down. At that point, I was working with clients and I could do healings on them, and then I'd see the energy fill back in from the Akashic records. So I was going up and speaking to them all the time, but I was under the impression that you were not allowed to go in. So, there I was going, a good little student. I'm following the rules, right? And so some of the first rules I ever followed those, right?
A trend.
Right?
Yes.
It wasn't really working for me, it turned out.
I was gonna.
But so what started to happen was eventually I would be working with a client, and occasionally I would get this huge information. It was more than I ever got as an intuitive, a cyclic, a healer, a medical intuitive. It was just like like the whole story. It would be like seeing the panorama of their lives, whatever past lives and soul contracts and karma, and where their intention is to go, maybe where they were planning, is a life. And I'd always think, wow, that's wild. And I'd actually hear them. I'd hear this voice telling me all this stuff. And every time I finish one of those readings, I'd be like, wow, that was amazing. But again, never thought to say, so who am I speaking to? You know?
It's amazing how often the obvious escapes all of us.
It really does. Isn't
It really does.
So wild? So, there we are. And eventually, I that goes on for about 5 years. I eventually meet someone who says, oh, you're talking to, like the Akashic Records. You're connected to the Akashic Records. And I'm like, but you can't do that. You're not supposed to do that. I was told you I'm not supposed to do that.
The forbidden fruit.
Exactly. And she was like, no, you can go in there, no problem. And I was like, okay. So I did. I kind of, learned how to access the Akashic Records using a vibrational key. And I worked in the records for many, many years, and then eventually the record keepers. So everyone has their own personal records. It's a library of your soul. And so, now being older, I imagine it like an old library, right? Nice stone library with hundreds or thousands of books. Each book represents a lifetime. So you can be, okay, I want to look at this life. I'm going to look at that life, see what's there, right? And there are record keepers, and these are our personal librarians. These are energy beings that are pure source beings. They are not ascended masters. They aren't loved ones, anybody who has crossed over. These are energetic beings who have really individuated from source and chosen to be of service to us as humans, as souls on a journey. Yeah. So
you just answered a question for me, because I've always labored. Why is it that we're born into this world with amnesia? It seems to be that way, Lisa.
Well, that's very, very true. I don't know if I answered that one, but I might have brought it up.
Well, maybe we're psychically connecting here, because, this is where I'm hearing in my thoughts is that it's one of the great puzzles for me is, why does it seem we start from zero?
It is interesting. And the way the record keepers, or our librarians, however, I call them a bunch of different things because there's actually quite a few of them. Each person has their own. Record keepers is a good general word, or I sometimes call them beings of light, another general word. But there are Akashic teachers and Akashic masters and Akashic lords. So there's a variety of these energy beings that are helping to teach us, depending on what we're working on. And I would say, the way I'm hearing it is that, if we weren't born with amnesia, I don't know if we'd come back. Right?
Ooh, that's a good point. It really is.
Right? Most lives are pretty challenging.
Yeah, they are. And I know that. And, I've gotten to the point in my life where I don't care about money, don't really care about status. I really don't care what people think anymore. Because there's nothing that this world holds for me other than working with other people and seeing that we reach a destination.
Right. And that is part of our destination, is part of what we write about in our soul plan. So this can be really shocking, but what the record keepers say is that most of us humans live somewhere up around 600 to 800 lifetimes.
Whoa.
Not 5 or 10, not 20 or 25. Like, I can hardly say 800, right?
800.
So there's so much to do. There's so many emotions. We just mess things up so often. We create just a boatload of karma. And it's really about learning and growing as a soul. So karma is never about right or wrong. It's not about that you've been bad and now you're being punished. It's that you didn't understand a situation. You weren't able to be compassionate and kind and loving and forgiving in that situation. And so you may have been a very not nice person. You may have abandoned a family. You may have become an alcoholic. You may have done a million different kinds of things depending on the situation. But this leaves us with this hanging, kind of like a hanging participle, right? This
Yeah.
leaves this unfinished business, this unlearned lesson, and that's exactly what karma is. So we choose when we write a soul plan. If you imagine you were writing a whole plan about all the things you want to do in a lifetime, so I want to learn those lessons, finish up that karma, neaten that all up. Okay, that's a part. Now there's some people I want to do that with. So now we're making soul contracts with other souls who are coming back to Earth to work through some of this karma, and of course also for children, for marriage, for support, for love, for best friends, for to be with some of our soul family. But a lot of it is about learning and growing, and then, of course, sharing our gifts.
So I like to back up. So what does the Akashic Masters, what this is how they describe karma then? It's not what we perceive. You always hear this when someone cheats you or whatever, and you say, well, karma will get back.
Right. That karma will get you in the end.
Exactly. So we have a different perception on that, right? It would
Right.
appear. Yeah.
Right. Because it's not a punishment. It's not somebody's going to come along and punish you for not being nice. But that doesn't mean that the situation that you're going to end up in might not look kind of like a punishment, because it's like, now I'm stuck in this muck or in this mire, and I have to figure it out. How can I figure it out in the kind of higher vibrational conscious sort of way?
Yeah. Is
And
that
not just, kill somebody to get out of jail,
right?
right?
Yeah. Oh boy, this is good stuff, because, as I'm seeing this, is the fact that, say that I'm looking for that path. Well, hate. Why is it that our species is so endowed with that emotion? But I've come my spirit guides tell me, and I finally am listening, hate is the absence of knowledge.
Mm, sure. And love.
And love. But
But
it's in
right,
that
that's
balance.
yeah.
Okay, so soul contracts. What are they, and how do we engage or disengage from them?
Yeah, so soul contracts, again, it's all pretty darn complicated,
Well,
but I can.
I haven't found an easy path yet.
So when we come into life, right, we're going to
Yeah,
be born as a baby to somebody.
right.
So very often we are going to pick our parents and have soul contracts with those parents. And the soul contract may be because they've parented us before. They may have been the best parents ever. We may want to come in to be with them again. That's a nice, lovely support contract. And we certainly have some of those, but we also have a lot of the other kinds. So imagine
Because
you're
I got the other kind. I
born.
mean, I don't know where these two came from, but
Right. Right. So, imagine you were born into an alcoholic family, and here you are, this poor little child with alcoholic parents who are fighting all the time, or maybe you have a sweet, kind mother, but she's hiding as best she can, so nobody beats her up, and and you've got a
Hmm.
kind of a violent father, so any of these kind of scenarios. So we would think, why in heaven's name would we ever pick that as a parent? But the truth is that if it's ever done to us, we've done it also. So this is kind
Yeah,
of
within
part of the
800
learning.
lifetimes, I think we've probably all screwed up royally.
Absolutely. So we're all everything, good, bad, and
Yeah,
indifferent, right?
yeah.
We've done it all. If you've been killed, you've killed. I mean, the truth is, it really is um, part of why we come to learn and grow and understand all aspects of human life. So there may be lifetimes where we may be born to someone, say, who's an alcoholic, who or someone who's abusive, because we've also been that at some point, and often it's more than once, because we try again and again and again and again to figure this out, and we often don't, because it's painful emotionally, and challenging to forgive someone who's abusive, or to support someone who's an alcoholic. But these are some of the soul contracts we have with these people in our lives. So
Hmm.
if you can look at it as, you might have come into a family with alcoholism because you wanted to be the shining light, and help to be such a bright light that they'll um, give up their addiction for you. Okay.
And maybe you're the bright light that helps teach them love.
Absolutely. So here you are, being this just amazing little soul, and it happens absolutely, where a parent will be like, "Oh my gosh, this child has just changed my life. I'm
Yeah.
you know and so that could be a soul contract, to be the light, to be the support, to help and assist someone in your family. Or it could be that you've been that many times, and now it's important for you to see it from this perspective, say, as the child, and to of course stay safe and forgive them anyway, and to do whatever it is you may be capable of doing to help and support them, to be compassionate, to maybe try and get them to go to AA, or however that works out in your life. There is no right or wrong there either, right? But these are
Yeah.
part of the contracts. This is all part of the learning and the growth that we're going through.
Boy, as you were talking, and I'm internalizing this myself, is that, and then there are those souls that help teach others how to forgive. And that's the greatest gift that I think some of us souls are able to pass on. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
So when a person's life, Lisa, is falling apart, fraying at the edges, how can the knowledge from the Akashic record help that individual? Because if
Oh,
it
yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's frustrating for me because I have always contended this knowledge exists. It has to exist. Anyway, I
Right.
digress.
Yep, that's so oh my, the Akashic records can help us in so many different ways. So one of the ways is, that I work with clients and do Akashic record readings, and to me, more important, being the healer, healing sessions.
Hmm.
Because what I find is that when people show up with, a lot of times, pain or drama or trauma or blocks in their lives, they're often either unconscious from their childhood, and also connected to past lives. So again, it's rare that it's one little thread that you can pull, but it's like, where else does this go? This is from many different lives where you had some issues, and then you have this. So like money is always a great one to talk about because there's
Hmm.
so many layers to money, right? So if you imagine back in a bunch of different past lives, maybe um, you may have had maybe you had a little shop at one point and you couldn't sustain it, and it ended up, closing down, and you ended up in debtor's prison because you owed a lot of money to different people because you were buying products to sell in your store and then you couldn't pay them back. So now here you are in debtor's prison, and that's just a terrible place to end up. And talk about guilt and shame and trauma around money. So here we have this real trauma, emotional
Hmm.
pain around money. And then maybe in another lifetime, you decide to, oh, let's do this better. So you're not conscious, you were in debtor's prison. Let's have a partner. So this time I'm going to have a partner, and the partner is going to help me do well, right?
Right.
And then maybe you're doing pretty well and you get kind of greedy and you run off with a cash box and all the money,
Okay.
right? So let me
Yeah.
just tell you, I have seen more than one person who has come to me with a business who has had their business partner run off with their information or money or
Hmm.
something. And honestly, inevitably, this is part of a karmic pattern. And that pattern is, to see what that feels like, to make it through anyway, to be able to understand possibly where that person is coming from, because we're humans, we're complicated. It's never, a simple
We
thing,
are
right?
complicated.
and and so then to be able to be compassionate and forgiving, even if we never see them again, or even if we end up going to court to try and get our $1 million back, that can be in alignment to you and your work. But the compassion and the understanding, the forgiveness on another level, is part of the learning and growth, right? So we're building kind of this not great trail of money things going along, right? And now, in your childhood, there, your parents are struggling and they're like, oh, you have to work so hard to make money, and life is really challenging and everything, you have to work, and this is what you've grown up believing, is that you have to work so hard to make any money in life, right? So there's your childhood belief, and you may have a bunch of ancestral energy around it, and it gets layered on with genetics and ancestry and other past lives and on and on. And so here you are wondering why you're always broke, wondering why you can't quite make ends meet, and wondering, what's going to happen to me? Am I going to end up in my car? And so when we start to look at these patterns and who you are through time immemorial, it can be phenomenally helpful compared to just, believing or thinking that maybe it's because you're bad or you're wrong. It's never really that. They're patterns we're coming to heal, and some of them are huge societal patterns that really need healing too.
Yeah, I can see that. So is there it's like the rat said, forget the cheese, just get me out of the trap. Um, so is there any way that, because I can tell you about myself, I don't sense inside of me that I'm going to be coming back through again. And my question is, do we reach a point of where we finally get the puzzle pieces to fit?
You know, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
I would say, hold on, let me
Yeah,
just get,
that's
can you
okay.
hear the dog? Is the dog very loud to you?
I don't mind them, you know.
Okay. Okay. There must be a deer in our backyard or something that she's going off on, but um
They're life forms. They give us peace. They're the best examples of unconditional love.
yeah, and she's so cute. She's just adorable little multi-poo, but at the moment,
What's her name?
kind of loud. ZZ,
Zizi.
Z-E-Z-E.
Okay, I have
ZZ, come
Dancer.
here,
I love
come here,
that.
come here, babe. Come say hi. Come here, Z. Come on. Come on. You can't even see out there. Come on. Poor
uh,
little thing.
I love.
It's like,
Well,
oh, okay. Squirrel. It must be gone.
we love
So,
dogs and cats here. Cats seem to be attracted to the frequency as well. So the
yeah.
reason why I asked this, Lisa, is that because I see this this experience of my journey, that it seems to me that we get here and we somehow get lost.
Mm, yeah.
And I don't know, I'm just speaking intuitively about as I'm talking to you, is that we get lost and we get into this soul trap. And it seems like it's the causality of cause and effect. If I hurt someone because I lied to them, I was unfaithful to them, I betrayed them, then there's no way, then how can I rectify that? The hurt is hurt. Now you can forgive, but it seems like we start a cycle at that point.
Um, yeah, but I really believe that, forgiveness is just a huge, huge piece of the puzzle, a
I
huge
agree.
piece of, so being able to forgive people, to be compassionate and understanding why they lied, why they were unfaithful, why they did whatever they did, because there's something going on in their head that's making sense to them.
Yeah, exactly.
And
Oh,
when
that's a
we
good point. That's a
see
very good
that,
point. I love
right?
that.
Right, as we can come to recognize that each soul is such a unique soul because we've had hundreds of lives of different kinds of experiences. And so one person's, absolute right, perfect path, or just like perfect meal is going to be totally different than someone else's. So when we can open up really in a lot of ways energetically, when we can really live in our hearts, when we can be compassionate, we can allow ourselves to see people for who they really are, as pure divine souls, always, no matter what the heck they're doing out there,
And can the
they're
record
still.
help us see that as well?
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
believe so. So,
Yeah.
to me, this is the reason that I really teach the work, because I see how transformational it is for students to learn to access their records and to spend time in this beautiful high vibration,
Wow.
because we're raising our energy out of the muck and the mire of the world, out of all this soup that we've been hanging in, and we're moving up into places of possibilities, into compassion, into love, and on really into awakening. And
Yeah.
I think that David Hawkins, who wrote the book Power versus Force, kind of outlined it in a nice way, where most of humanity is living in the lower 200. If you looked at the world from 0 to 1,000, most of us hang out around, 0 to 200, and those are all the heavy. That's the guilt and the blame and the judgment and the hate and the anger and the fear, and that's all under 200. So once we can tip that scale, once we can break through that crazy little glass ceiling into 250,
Yeah.
into
Yeah.
possibility, into even boredom. Let me just say that's above 200. So,
Yeah. Now, I could see that. I could see that. Sure.
right, you're kind of coming to neutral, and sometimes neutral might feel boring, but you're neutral, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then we can really shift and start to see these greater expanses of the world. And to me, I find that working in the Akashic Records is very, very helpful. It's one of the things I even teach my students to help to work through a lot of these painful emotions in their records, where you're saying, okay, where is this guilt hiding in my body? Having this conversation with your record keepers, your Akashic guides, so that they can say, you're holding some of that in your stomach, and there's some of that in the back of your neck, and that causes a lot of pain in your body. And you can say, where did this come from? Where did it originate? And they will often say, well, originally we go back about 3,000 years, say,
Sure.
or but in this life, you had, say, some experiences as a child, maybe. You had a little traumatic childhood, or you were bullied, or sometimes it doesn't even seem like that big of a deal, and we hang on to it because there's something that we've come to learn and understand about it. And so they can help us. And of course, pure source vibration and energy helps us to clear and release a lot of this
Ah.
stuck energy that's stuck in our space, causing these blocks.
So you can clear it out.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's one of the things that I love about working in the records, and the way I've been gifted to do it is to be able to clear and move throughout time and space. I can go into a past life and clear that trauma where you were, killed for being a healer. And so you're afraid to step out and be seen. There's so many light workers in the world right now who are like, oh, I'd love to do some healing work, or but my family would think I was crazy. And I'm just afraid. I don't know why, but I'm afraid, right? I'm afraid to speak my truth.
Well, let me ask you this, because I haven't found anyone who can yet address it, but I'm observing what seems to me to be, and I'll just say this is what I'm seeing this, as this is probably the second great awakening that I am now observing in humanity. Why is that? Or is it that? I mean, I could be, maybe just my perspective is seeing that, but I don't think so. I'm seeing evidence that there is something going on.
Oh,
Um,
yes, I agree. Absolutely.
and I just make reference to this today with Pew Research. Christianity is losing, they're estimating now, over 3 million followers a month.
Wow.
3 million followers a month are abandoning the faith.
Wow.
And I ask, Lisa, is it maybe because of something that is happening that the Akashic Record potentially could have seen coming? Is it possible that we have come to a point of a graduation? I guess is the only way I know how to put it.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So we can look at it in a quite a few different ways. I mean, even, when we go back to the beginning of the age of Aquarius, we knew that we were moving into a new energy construct planetarily.
Thank
And
you, Mr.
now,
Floyd.
yeah, seriously, but now, I can't quite do that math. I'm like, almost 60 years later. Is that
Yeah,
almost 60
yeah,
years
yeah,
later?
yeah.
We're deep into this energy. And over the last year or two, literally, we just went through another full moon. We had an eclipse. We had um, eclipse of a blue blood
Yeah.
eclipse moon last,
Strange
all of
lunar
these
eclipse.
are energetic doorways. So we're opening doorways, we're bringing in new energy, and we're clearing old energy. Now, there's a couple of really big patterns. So we've been stuck for a good, well, they talk about the yugas being about 2,500 years. So, since
Okay.
Christianity, right, and
Yeah,
a little
yeah.
before, we've been stuck in a pattern around the patriarchal system.
Yes.
right? And that's very connected to the church, to all the churches, to the, the Father being right, to not having our own access to source, to
Ooh,
having to
yeah.
act like children and listen to our Father, who is the priest or the Pope or whoever. And so right now we are deconstructing that 2,500-year-old pattern of patriarchy. And before that, there was a very strong pattern of matriarchy, which also wasn't quite right either, because it was women still kind of over men, and then men over women, and now we're coming to a place where it's time to balance
Oh,
both
yeah. Yeah.
equally, masculine, feminine energy. So many of the souls on earth have big soul contracts to help to balance masculine, feminine energy. And we do it in so many ways. So I would say, kind of planetarily, that's kind of the big energy overview. The earth herself, which is a sentient being, is awakening also. And we're in for a wild ride because we're on her big body, right?
I've heard that. I heard that actually. I read today when I was doing the research for our interview that yes, it seems the Earth is awakening as well.
Yep. Yeah, so it's exciting, and I don't think this has ever happened. Certainly, never happened here on Earth. I don't know if it's ever happened on any other planet with kind of conscious, you know,
Are we heading
being.
to a great confluence here?
I believe that we're shifting from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. So that's kind of the big shift. And what we've done is, I believe we've avoided a split where it was very possible that kind of the higher vibrational people would kind of go off into the fifth dimension, and the 3D world would stay here and struggle like it's been doing. But I believe that there's so many light workers on the earth, and so many people waking up, and so many people starting to do their work and doing their work, that it looks more like waves. Right. So right now we're in the very beginning of the first wave, the crest of the first wave. And this is going to go on probably through about 2020. And so all the light workers will be waking up and shifting into this higher vibration and bringing through more energy and information. And I believe that more and more people will wake up and start to find, people like me and you, and really look for information.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here thinking, so I carry, not physically, but in my spirit, I carry a staff with me. And it's like I am seeing myself that I need something to be etching on my staff that this record has. And to be able to have access to it, that's incredibly invaluable. It's priceless.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, of course, I agree. Of course,
Of
I
course,
agree.
but
Well, but it didn't kind of come about that way. It wasn't like I was looking for a new job, and
no.
I said, "Oh, I think I'll do this." So one day, these beings would actually yell at me. It was kind of funny. Because they had these big booming voices, and I get this big information, like I was saying, and I didn't know who the heck they were, and they'd be kind of, telling me this stuff, and I'm like, wow, right? So once I started to access the records, once I figured it out and got on that path and was doing that work, they were kind of bossy. So
Well, I mean, they do like got all the knowledge.
Well,
they have an attitude too.
right. Right. I forgive them. So, but basically what they said is, will you bring this Akashic work out to humanity? This is our request to you. This is like part of your soul contract is to bring the Akashic records back to humanity. It was actually pulled away from the earth for almost 1,000 years, from the dark ages, from like 1,000 till like the 60s. It was really
I can accept that.
Yeah.
There was something that happened You know, Lisa, I always say that in my studies that I have found two great tragedies, well, actually three. The first would be the library at Alexandria.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
The second would be the library at Constantinople.
yeah.
The third would have been the Christian purge of knowledge that took place from roughly about 700 AD until about 1600 AD.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Knowledge that I contend has to be recorded somewhere, Lisa. And this is why I
Yeah.
wanted you on here.
Right. And so it's recorded, of course, in the the ethers. It's recorded in our
Exactly.
Akashic records. Absolutely. Um, there are some archaeologists and researchers who believe that there is another physical library down in the Yucatan
Really?
that may yet be found. And there is a belief that there is a library in or under one of the paws of the Sphinx.
I have a sense that my brethren at one time made contracts that they would have paid for their very life to take that knowledge out. And that's why I contend there is a secret knowledge out there, Lisa.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
believe that you very well may be tapped into that.
Yeah, so it's tapping in to me. My intention as we raise our vibrations is to be able again to tap in further, deeper, more, right?
Yeah.
So it's been interesting. It's been an interesting path because a lot of what I've been given personally is I was asked to start a school. So I have students I've trained to be Akashic Record teachers. There's a small handful right now, and another half a dozen or so who are certified Akashic Record consultants who I also teach to do the healing work I do so that we can go back into so we can, go clear pain and trauma from people's lives for them, right? When we do readings and sessions. So,
Yeah, because I
um,
can see this as important that we have to begin to deal with the soul.
yes,
We can't
yes,
simply go by an ideology that says, well, I can depend upon someone else to take care of that. No, we have to take care of that individually, right?
that's right. Yeah, absolutely. It's all you all the time, no doubt. No, and that's a really actually fabulous point, Wayne, is that you cannot take on someone else's karma.
Ooh,
You
powerful.
can, yeah, you cannot do that. They need to learn the lessons. So as you're kind of scrolling through, you see course one that you just scrolled by is the beginning course where you learn to read your own records. And then I teach you vibrational keys, sacred prayers to open your records. There's 7 healing prayers to work with. There's meditations and information to help to clear and to be more, to really own your own space, getting
Mm.
everybody out of your space so you can align more fully with your soul. And your soul purpose and your soul work. And then in the second course, which I call the two of those together, is really about Akashic self mastery. This is about going deep. In the second course, we go really deep and learn about the really ancient wisdom, some of this ancient wisdom we're talking about, and how our past lives affect this life, and how we bring karma with us from past lives, and our ancestral lineage, why we choose the families we choose, along with genetics and genetic lineage, as well as accessing, we can kind of superpower our creativity with the Akashic Records. So I've actually channeled 2 books through the records. The record keepers say, time to write another book. And I'm like, okay, what are we writing about?
Well, what I love is number one, your faithfulness, and two, the integrity. And let me just tell you what I keep on hearing. I'm hearing sovereignty, sovereignty, sovereignty,
Mm.
establishing our sovereignty. And
Yes.
we're all kings and priests. And um, this, I think, is an important step, Lisa. I really do.
Yeah, we really truly are sovereign souls, and it is important to stand in our own sovereignty, owning our power, owning our wisdom and our gifts, and come out from under the rocks that we've been hiding under for
Yes.
hundreds and thousands of years and stand in our power so that we can elevate this world and create heaven on earth here. So,
So,
yeah.
so I'm very interesting. So you can actually become, this is good to become actually a certified consultant as well. You see, I think, Lisa, there's so much pain and there's so much, I see a lot of emails people write, and when I write them back, there's an answer. And the answer lies in here. We just can't seem to connect the dots.
Mm.
And I think that this is the opportunity that it would seem like to me that we can help begin to put the pieces into place of the puzzle. That's my view.
I completely agree. I think it's phenomenal because what I see happen in classes, even in the beginning, in the Akashic self mastery, usually it happens sometimes in course 1 or course 2, but we're asking the record keeper some questions about, who we really are and what are some of our gifts and where have we been, what have we done in different lifetimes, right? And people get really amazed, kind of wowed. It's like, getting your socks knocked off where you're like, wow, I am really, ancient. I mean, when I first
Yeah.
started seeing myself in the kind of, ancient goddess temples in Greece or Rome, being an oracle way back then, and then I realized I actually came to Earth before there were humans here. I would come as a whale. So the whales and the dolphins and the
Mm-hmm.
Egyptians all come from Sirius, right? From
Mm-hmm.
the dog star A and B. And I was a whale. I was also an Egyptian, but I would love to come and swim in the oceans. And I thought, well, that's crazy, really.
I contend this, Lisa. The day is forthcoming when we will find where wisdom may very well be stored is actually with the whales, with the aquatic life that I think personally whales are actually an ascended beings.
Well, yeah, if you imagine that, that's exactly what we were when we used to,
Well, I mean, how
teleport
can the
here from
cranial
another planet.
capacity of a whale, you're going to tell me that that just sits idly? No, I think those are intelligent creatures that are beyond
Oh,
our comprehension.
yes, absolutely,
It's just
absolutely.
me.
Yeah, I know. I completely agree with you. Whales and dolphins, absolutely.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so yes, and I really, we're starting to discover more cities and structures and things underwater.
yeah.
I think that part of as the patriarchy falls, as some of these old paradigms really break up, then a lot of information that is known and has been hidden by our governments for years, and I'm not a big conspiracy theory person at all, but I really believe there's lots of amazing information that will come to light, whether it's about different spaceships that have been visiting and they've been hiding from us, or underwater cities. What I really think there's so much um, information out there that's just not being shared yet. And so, as we try to gently release the old structure and program of the patriarchy, because we don't want things to come crashing down and burn. That's
No,
never any
no,
fun.
no, no. And I'll tell you, that's my hope. This is what this channel is about, this community. They got number one. the men and women that are here, they're of a vibration that's above the norm. And, I'm going to be ordering your course. I'm sure that there will be others in here as well, but we vibrate to what your message is. And something has changed. Something has changed with humanity. And Lisa, I think that maybe this is a collection of light workers here. I don't know. I know that there's more intuitives here than I've ever seen anywhere. This is not the place to come if you're holding secrets. So I got to take us. Someone's going to call you out. So, all right, the hour is come and gone, and I have to ask you to please come back because I don't think we even got into any of this. I think I have you scheduled to come on my radio program this Thursday. Do I not?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
so
yeah.
we will pick up that conversation Thursday night over on Artist First Network, the Steiger Perspective. Now, I know you have some free gifts. I put that in the description box. It'll stay in there because this will be seen by thousands and thousands of new light workers. So, what would you like to tell everyone? Because I'm going to give you the last 4 or 5 minutes here.
Okay, well, so of course you can read a little bit more about the free gifts, but I am really all about helping humanity release the old negative emotions, the pain, the fear and the self-doubt, so that we can move into a place of self-love, come into owning the truth of who we truly are as divine souls. And really, so to me, the Akashic Records is such a powerful transformational tool to do that. And so there's 3 gifts there you can download and just stick your little toes in. 2 of them are meditations. And
do you have a prayer that you could just potentially lead us into, maybe into that first stop? I mean, is there a prayer that we could actually,
yes.
Because listen, I people say, well, I don't believe in any of the world gods, not the big 3 religions, but I do pray because there is a infinite source out there, infinite being. Is there or is there not?
Yes, there is. Absolutely. Yes. Absolutely.
I know I called you on the spot.
That's okay. I'm good on the spot because it's never really me. It's really the Akashic Masters.
See, I knew.
This is the prayer book, the 73 Prayers to Transform Your Life from Questioning to Knowing. Lots of answers in here, a lot of that kind of thing. And then the other book is The Infinite Wisdom of the Akashic Records. Whoops. So those are my 2 books, and I think the links are there. Yes. This one actually helps you to start accessing your own Akashic Records. It's a great kind of primer. And then I always recommend going on into like a more live or even home study course, because not that fat of a book. It gives you the outline. You get to start to open your records, feel the energy. And then in the course, it's actually 12 hours of me teaching you stuff, and with tons of guided meditations and just
Excellent.
Lots of information, right? So what I am hearing to do to prayer, the one that I opened up to that I got was, this is perfect, is the prayer for worthiness of unique self.
Oh, thank you.
So all of us light workers and healers, we often just doubt that we're good enough, or it's okay to be seen, whatever it is. So this is a prayer for worthiness of unique self.
Excellent.
Mother, Father, Goddess, God, I claim my uniqueness and I liberate the collective consciousness that has held me in constraint. I am free of all holds that sees my self-worth. I step away from the desire for public approval. I release the group contracts and agreements that no longer serve my highest good and move beyond the limitations of authority. I am worthy to express as my God self and do so now and each day forward. I claim this truth for myself and all I meet. And so it is. Blessed be.
Wow. Whew.
Mm.
As they would say, that gets the hairs in the back of my neck standing up. Lisa, it has been just a blessing to have you on. Thank you. I love your energy. I love the gift that you give. And this is what we're all about. It's a journey and about the sharing of knowledge. And thank you for sharing the knowledge that you have been graced with. I think it's
Oh,
just fabulous.
thank you. Thank you, Wayne. I have so enjoyed our conversation. I feel very blessed to be able to share with you and your amazing group of light workers. And I look forward to being on next Thursday.
Yes, we're going to have you on next Thursday, and we're going to have you back on again. I think that this is a message of hope. And if there's one thing, Lisa, our species needs right now, all of us in this room, we all need hope. And
I
hope
agree.
is what sustains us.
Yes,
You are a
absolutely.
blessing and you are a light worker among us. And so you are welcomed here at any time.
Oh, thank you.
All right, folks, stay on as we go off. Lisa, I want to talk to you as we get off there. Everyone, I just want to say thank you. Thank you to all the moderators. Thank you for everyone that's you stopped in. I know you can go anywhere you want to, and it's a blessing and a privilege to have when you come in because this is family and it feels good. So be kind, everyone. We'll see you probably real soon. If not, we'll definitely see you on Sunday with Jeffrey Doherty. All right, folks, be kind to yourself. We'll talk soon. Bye-bye.